I think we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Natalie Koo. I'm the Assistant Director of Conventions, and I'm joined here today with my colleagues Anna Keller, Director of Conventions, and Donna Wright, Manager of Scientific Session Development. This is the APHA Annual Meeting Moderator and Co-Host Training. So I want to start with some basic details about the APHA's virtual annual meeting. All oral sessions are live and done through Zoom meeting. So this is a Zoom webinar. You might be more familiar with the Zoom meeting. All of our oral scientific sessions will be done in Zoom meeting. The sessions were scheduled in Mountain Time. There's a little bit of confusion sometimes around time zone. All the emails you receive from us about your session talks about the session being in Mountain Time. But when you look at our virtual meeting platform, you can see the sessions in both Mountain Time or My Time, and it automatically adjusts to your local time when you first sign in. You'll see a clock at the top of the screen that says either My Time or Mountain Time. We're working with our vendor Confex to provide the Zoom meetings, and they will have a tech in every Zoom to help you with any issues you have. We're recording all of our oral sessions, and those will be available for recording until August 31st, available for viewing on demand until August 31st, 2021. Sessions are going to be captioned for on-demand viewing. Each presenter has a discussion board associated with their presentation. So after the session is over, if attendees still have questions for the panelists, they can ask them through the discussion board, and attendees can earn continuing education for attending the session you are moderating. So a little bit of an overview of the sessions. When you navigate to the virtual meeting platform and go to your session, there's going to be a Join Now button located on that session level. And you want to arrive 20 minutes before the session starts and introduce yourself to the other panelists, the co-host, the moderator, and the Confex tech. This is the time for you all to test your microphones, to test your screen, to make sure the presenters know how to do screen sharing for showing their slides. And once everybody is settled, the moderator will want to put up the housekeeping slides that we've made available in your moderator corner, and I'll talk more about that later. You want to make sure you start the session on time, and at the beginning of the session, the moderator will introduce the topic and the presenters. Each presenter then has 15 minutes, and the Q&A is at the end for all the panelists. And the moderator, you'll end the presentation when the time is up. Each session is 90 minutes long. All right, so specifically for moderators, we have two roles this year. We have moderators, which have always been part of the annual meeting, and we also have something called the co-host. Knowing that the virtual setting is new for everybody, we wanted to add this additional role of a co-host to make sure that moderators have somebody to help them do things like look at the chat. And I'll go into that in a minute, but let's first start with moderators. So again, as a moderator, make sure you arrive 20 minutes early to the session. This is really important. You're a vital role to the session, and we want to make sure you're able to sign on early. So arrive 20 minutes early to the session, introduce yourself to the Confex tech and the other panelists and your co-hosts, and you want to rename yourself. So right now, if you look at my name, it just says Natalie Koo. What you would want to do is you would want to rename yourself as, I would do moderator Natalie Koo. This is a signal to the panelists, the attendees, and the tech that you're the moderator of the session. Make sure you start on time, and you want to use the housekeeping slides that we provided in your moderator speaker corner. So every email you got from us had a link to something called the Moderator Speaker Corner. Those emails came from Donna Wright with the email address presenters@apha.org. And when you log into your Moderator's Corner, there's a link to download slides that we created. Those slides have some housekeeping information like the session being recorded, how attendees can get CE, how they can use the chat feature for questions. So make sure you download those and put them up by using the screen sharing in Zoom. At the beginning of the session, you'll go through the housekeeping slides. And then you'll introduce yourself to introduce the panelists and the presenters of the session. And then you'll reintroduce the first presenter and then turn it over to the presenter to give their slides. When that presenter is done, you'll then reintroduce the next presenter. And the reason we're having you introduce the presenters between each presentation is so that the presenters have time to stop sharing their screen and let the next presenter share their screen. At the end of all the presentations, and each presenter has 15 minutes to present, at the end of all the presentations, you'll do a Q&A. And so you'll use the chat feature in Zoom to read questions to the presenters about their work. So that's a little bit about the moderator responsibilities. Anna or Donna, are there any questions coming in that I should answer now regarding moderators?
I'm trying to respond to them as they're coming in.
Great.
Can moderators and co-hosts be changed at this time? If so, who do we contact? If you are not the program planner, you can contact your program chair so that they know to what adjustments to make to those roles. Contact information for the program chair can be found on the guidelines page, I believe, for moderators. Natalie, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
The other question that we're seeing quite a bit is, will the Confex tech be responsible for starting and stopping the session?
Yeah, no.
So the Confex tech is the host of the meeting. They are the ones who, they do have to join it to start it. And when they leave the meeting, it will cancel the meeting. So as the moderator, you don't need to start or end the meeting. But you do need to be registered for the meeting. So all moderators, co-hosts, presenters, all need to be registered for the meeting. The only way to access the Zoom link for your session is to be registered for the event.
Great. And there also, go ahead, Donna.
I was going to say another question that came in is whether or not a speaker can be a co-host and help field questions. And the answer is absolutely they can. We would like to be able to add them to the session if that's possible in advance so that we can send them out an email with what the guidelines for the co-host. But if you want to just designate someone on the spot to be a co-host to help with the fielding of the questions, that's fine too.
There have also been a couple questions about the length of the presentation. Does it have to be 15 minutes? And does the Q&A have to take place at the end of the session? And I would say that for that 15 minutes is our maximum limit for presentations, so that you give all the other presenters an equal opportunity to present. You can certainly have a shorter presentation than that. And then that would just allow for more Q&A time at the end. And we unfortunately do have to do the Q&A on the end, not between each presentations, just to keep the session moving and making sure all the presenters have an equal chance to present.
Another question is whether or not the moderator controls the speaker slides. That's only if the moderator chooses to do that on behalf of a presenter, but we're asking that as a moderator that you reach out to your presenters and just connect with them and do a walkthrough of the session and ask them to send you a copy of their slides, not so that you can share your screen and display the slides, but just so that you have it as a backup in case something goes wrong with the presenters sharing their screen. But we're asking the presenters to actually share their screen and present their slides from their desktop.
And then remember to stop sharing your screen as well, so
Right.
that the next presenter can, because you can't have two people sharing at one time. There also is a little bit of confusion between oral sessions and roundtable sessions. And so this webinar really is focused on the oral sessions. Roundtables are managed very differently, and we did do a webinar last week for the roundtable sessions. But just in a nutshell, I can tell you that the roundtable sessions are only half an hour long, and we're utilizing breakout rooms. So the presenters will be sent to different breakout rooms. The audience will also be distributed to the breakout rooms. The presentation and the Q&A all take place in the breakout rooms. Again, that is for roundtable sessions.
And we did a training for a roundtable presenter. So if you are on this and you're a roundtable presenter or a roundtable moderator, that training was recorded and is on our website. If you go to the for presenter information, I highly recommend that you watch that. I'm going to keep going because I think some of these questions are going to get answered a little later on. And Anna and Donna, if you want to keep answering them while I go, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, so a little bit about co-host. So as I said, this is a new role to the annual meeting. As a help to the moderators, we've done our best again to assign co-hosts to every session. Again, the co-host should arrive 20 minutes early and introduce themselves to the tech, the moderator, and the panelists. The co-host's main responsibility during the presentations is to keep an eye on the chat feature and answer any basic questions, like will the session be recorded? How do I get back to the main portal? We don't expect the co-host to have the answer to everything, but we do hope you'll be familiar with some of the basic information that's shared on those housekeeping slides by the moderator. As the co-host, you'll also have the ability to turn off microphones and cameras for any participants who are disrupting the session. So your job as the co-host is to really keep an eye on things so that the moderator and the panelists don't get disrupted. And I'm realizing I forgot to mention one thing. When you join 20 minutes early and you introduce yourself to the Context Tech, both the moderator and the APHA co-host will get Zoom co-host privileges. This will give you that ability to turn off microphones and cameras. Now, as the co-host, so as you're watching the chat feature for any basic questions, you should also keep a list of the really great moderated questions that the moderator might want to use during the Q&A portion. Work with your moderator on how they want to get those questions. You could send them via the chat function as a private chat, so they know the ones that you think that they should get. We know some groups create Google Docs as a way for the moderator or the co-host to share information. You could send things via text, but since you're keeping an eye, you as the co-host are keeping an eye on the Q&A box, it's really great for you to share those excellent questions with the moderator before we go into the Q&A. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Zoom specifically. So Anna or Donna, before I jump into that, were there any co-host related questions that we should answer?
I did not see any co-hosts.
Yeah, none that specifically.
Well, here's one that says, how do we find out who our co-hosts are? For that, you would have to sign into or go to the meeting platform and search for your session and click on the title to the session. You'll be able to see who the moderator is as well as who's the co-host. That's only if a co-host has been assigned to the session.
I see a couple of questions that I'll answer now as we're getting into Zoom about how you change your name in Zoom. So when you're looking at your box and your name, you can't do it in this presentation because we're in Zoom webinar, but when you're in Zoom meeting, there are 3 dots next that kind of hover over your Zoom box. And if you click on that, there's an option to rename. I'll go ahead and do mine live while we're watching it, and I'll change it to APHA Natalie Koo. So you click on the 3 dots hovering over your video in Zoom, and you can change your name. So as I said, you'll be made a co-host in Zoom, and we're recommending or highly encouraging that everybody download the newest version of Zoom. There are a few features in the newest version of Zoom that might be helpful during the meeting, and also we just want to make sure that you don't have any Zoom issues during the conference. You'll be made a co-host, which again will give you the ability to hide people's cameras and their microphones. So if there's somebody in the session who's forgotten to turn off their microphone and they are in a noisy area, you can turn off their microphone for them.
So we did have another question about co-hosts and if there is an easy way for the moderators to see who is co-hosting their session. So one thing I wanted to add to that was that not every session is going to have a co-host. And so when that's the case, the moderator will also be taking a look at the chat box for questions. We are still soliciting both moderators and co-hosts. but I would say it might be unlikely that you will have a co-host. Donna, how can they see who their co-host is and if they have a co-host?
Yeah, they would have to navigate to the meeting platform and search for the session online. And when you click on the title, you will see if there has been a co-host assigned to your session.
And one other thing about the 20 minutes, joining 20 minutes beforehand, is that it does give you an opportunity to interact with the other presenters. You can ask them how to pronounce their names if that's a concern for you. You can check your sound, you can check your video. But I just wanted you to be aware that once that Join Now link shows up 20 minutes beforehand, it is also possible that regular attendees might find their way into the session. So that's another reason why it's really important that you identify yourself as a speaker so that the Convex staff know who you are. And the attendees, you can just ask them to turn off their mics and their video, although I think that happens automatically.
So a little clarification about Zoom. Today we're in Zoom webinar, but during the conference, it'll be in Zoom meetings. There's no Q&A ability in Zoom meeting, there's just the chat function. So you'll be using the chat function for the Q&A portion. Okay, and I think I saw a couple questions about this and we've mentioned it before, but to understand the screen sharing. So make sure you understand how to do screen sharing in Zoom. The only time you'll be doing screen sharing as the moderator is to show the housekeeping slides or to help a presenter if they're having issues with their slides. So what's going to happen during the session is the presenters are going to be screen sharing to show their PowerPoint presentation. You as the moderator do not need to show the PowerPoint presentations for the other presenters. Even if they give them to you in advance, it's really just as a backup. What would happen if, let's say a presenter no longer has access to the internet, but can call in and give their presentation, you could show their slides for them. So that's really just for a backup. And we also want to make sure that as a moderator, you understand how a presenter can play sound during their presentation. So when you go to do screen sharing in Zoom, it'll pop up with a window asking you what screen you want to share. And at the bottom of that is a place to check a box that says play computer audio. That's how if someone has a video during their presentation, they can play the sound in the video. And it's important for you to know this because as a moderator, they might ask you how to do it if a presenter is lost. So just make sure that you are familiar with Zoom and the screen sharing part of Zoom. Zoom has a lot of really great tutorials on their website. So just Google Zoom screen sharing and just take a look at their tutorial so you understand how to do it in case presenters ask you any questions.
Can I make one other comment also?
Sure.
So each moderator, as soon as they're added to the system, there used to be an automatic email that went out, but now it's turned off because we're getting all these changes and we're adding moderators every day. And I know some of you have recently been added and you have not received the initial moderator email with the information that links to your session, links to your speaker's corner. I will be sending out another email with all that specific information in it by the end of the week. That way you'll have information on how to reach out to your presenters, set up some time to maybe do a quick run through with the presenters. And the speaker's corner will also be the place where you will download the bios for the presenters as well. So be on the lookout for that email by the end of the week.
So there were two questions about that as well. One was, how are they supposed to use the bios? And my understanding is the moderators are introducing each of the presenters and very briefly introducing them with using their bio. And I think the bio is only 1 or 2 sentences, Donna, is that right?
Yeah, just a couple of sentences,
Yes.
but you can kind of tailor it to make sure you're not spending too much time reading like a whole biography of the presenter. So yeah, you'll be able to download what they've submitted from your speaker's corner, and you can tailor it to shorten it if you need to, but I don't think you should spend any more than three minutes or so introducing the presenters at the beginning of your session.
And so just real quickly, looking at the Q&A, I'm just going to explain again, as the moderator, the only time you would be sharing your screen is if you are to show the housekeeping slides, or if a presenter is having issues. And to share your screen, there's an option at the top of at the bottom of your Zoom window that says share your screen. You'll click on that, it'll allow you to share your screen, and it'll pop up with a window asking you which screen you want to share. Let's say you have a bunch of windows open on your computer, you've got a Word document and a PowerPoint. It's asking you which document you want to share. We suggest you close as many windows as possible to make sure there's no distractions. But when that box pops up, there's then a checkbox at the bottom to say play computer audio, and that's how you play sound.
Another question that came up was regarding the Q&A, whether the questions are only allowed in the chat or whether we would allow live questions. And I think that really depends on how many people are in the audience. If you end up with a session that is quite large, you really should stick to the chat as the way to get the questions. If it's a relatively small audience, then certainly you can welcome them to present their question verbally, and you can answer it that way. They will have the ability to turn their mics on and off, but it defaults to turning them off.
Great, I'm going to keep going. We might answer some of the questions through here. I wanted to share a little bit about accessibility at the annual meeting. It is APHA's goal to make sure all individuals can attend the annual meeting regardless of any disabilities. We are captioning all of our sessions after the meeting is over for post-meeting viewing, but we are also live captioning some sessions by request. We also have 2 sessions where there will be American Sign Language interpreters. So if your session is being captioned live, a captioner will join your session. The Confex tech will do everything. There's nothing for you to do, but they'll be made a captioner. And we just would like you to make sure attendees know that captioning is available. So if you see a captioner in your session, make sure that attendees know to click the close captioning button at the bottom of their Zoom screen. And if there's a sign language interpreter, the conference exchange tech should be pinning their video to the screen so that the deaf attendee can always see the sign language interpreter, which is something for you to keep in mind as well, to mention to the Confex tech that if you see a sign language interpreter on your session, remind the tech to pin them to the top of the screen. And just a few things about making sure that all presentations are accessible. As a moderator, don't be afraid to gently interrupt presenters who are not describing important visual elements of their slides. So for example, if I had a map, I should say this map shows instead of this shows. Somebody who has low vision or can't see wouldn't know what I'm talking about if I just say this shows. And also with acronyms, and make sure when you connect with your presenters ahead of time that they're going to be using a lot of acronyms at the beginning of their presentation. They should clarify what those acronyms are, or you can put them in the chat box. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that everything in our meeting takes place in the virtual meeting platform, and I was going to jump in and show that a little bit to everybody here to make sure you know how to join your session. But is there anything, Anna or Donna, that we should answer before I jump into that?
No, I don't think at the moment. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so here we are in APHA 2020 virtual meeting platform. This is where everything lives for the annual meeting. The first thing you're going to want to do when you arrive on this page is sign in, and you use your registration ID number and email address to sign in. I'm signed in because I could see my initials at the top of the page. If you're not signed in, it'll say sign in up here and also right below this home button. Once you're signed in, you'll again see your initials. You'll also see a toolbar up here where you can see your favorite sessions and your calendar, people you've connected with, and your notifications. I wanted to highlight how to get to a session. So like we keep saying, 20 minutes before a session start, there's going to be a join now button on your session. Let's look at the program by day and look at today. These are today's live sessions. I'm looking at everything in Mountain Time, and it's 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time now, which means that this session, the HIT orientation for new members, is live. So if I clicked on this Join Now button, it will take me to the Zoom meeting for that event. So that's how you're going to join your Zoom on the day of your presentation. You're going to browse the program, find your presentation, and click on it, or there'll be a button here as well where you can join. And while I'm here, I'll point out that we have content that's live, like our oral scientific sessions that you are all managing, but also on demand. Our poster sessions, our film festival, our wellness activities are all on demand viewing. So please go ahead and get into the program now, check it out, watch our poster sessions, get yourself familiar so that at the day of your presentation, you know how to join. And I highly recommend either starring the session that you're moderating or adding it to your calendar. When you add it to your calendar and you click up here, you can easily see it. And the Join Now button will also appear on this page. So it means day of, you can easily just navigate right to your session and join the Zoom meeting for it. Anna or Donna, anything else I should highlight here?
Did we talk about, you did talk about the time zone.
Yes, time zone is really important. I did mention earlier, when you got emails from presenters, everything was in Mountain Time. That's where how we scheduled the meeting. But you can look at it, you can look at the program in meeting time, which is American Denver Mountain Time or my time. I'm looking at it in Mountain Time. You can see because of this clock at the top, it says MDT. But if I clicked it to my time, it says my time up here. And now you can, hopefully you saw that the times all changed. I live on the East Coast.
There's been quite a bit of questions about how to access the speaker bios. So every moderator has a link, a personal link to their moderator corner, very similar to a speaker's corner. And from the moderator corner, that's where you will access the bios. Donna was explaining that it's a little bit clunky to get to the individual bios. And the contact information for each speaker. You have to go in individually, Donna, to each of their presentations, or how do they get the bio and the contact information?
Yeah, when they log into their, it's called a speaker's corner for the moderator. There's a section that says well, I don't know if it says download bios, but it says bios. When they click on that, it will show them all the presenters. Underneath the name of the presenter will be the bio that they've uploaded. So they can just copy those bios, whatever they submitted, and put it into a Word document or however you want to have it when you introduce them.
And how about email addresses for the presenter?
Yeah, if you click on the name of the presenter, it's a hyperlink to their email, and that's how you get their email address in order to contact them and in order to schedule a walkthrough of your session. You can also find the email address for the co-host if one has been assigned to the session as well there.
And the difference between the role of the moderator and the co-host, it sounds like there still is a little confusion with that.
Yeah, so basically the moderator is managing the session, introducing the speakers, keeping the presenters to their allotted time. The co-host is managing the chat. So they will be, I guess, throwing out the questions to get answered to the presenters, but that's their only role, and that is just to manage all the questions that are coming into the chat.
I think the other question is about the moderator slides and how to manage those. So really the slides will be shown in the beginning, and then you won't need the slide deck again until you get to the Q&A. And then there's a Q&A slide and a closing slide. So yeah, in the beginning, as you're starting the session, you want to put the title slide up. And then the presenter slide that has a list of all your presenters.
Yeah, and that slide deck is going to also be in your speaker's corner, so you'll be able to download it. And so we're just asking you to provide the title of the session and then add the names of the presenters. There's a separate slide for the presenters where you can just plop in their name for that.
So I think there was just a request for me to make my screen a little bit bigger here, and I can go ahead and do that. Oops, maybe too big. So again, if you browse by program or day, and you find a session you want to attend, on this right here below where it says live session, where it currently says join opening general session, there'll be a link that says to join now. That will take you to your Zoom meeting. It looks like a little button, just like this live session. And it's these characters right here, the star and the calendar, or sorry, it's a plus sign. That one's on my schedule already. It's a plus sign to add things to your calendar. And sorry, there's so many questions in there. Oh, I was going to respond to someone's question about the ability to turn off the chat feature. That isn't something you can do in Zoom, but we do know from working with our disability committee that the screen readers can read the Zoom chat. All right, I'm going to go back to back here. Okay, some more information to share. And yes, we can share these slides. We're going to be, this is being recorded. We're also going to go through the Q&A and answer any questions that we missed. And I can also post these slides if people would like them. So a couple things, Donna touched on this a little bit. Prior to the conference, you should be reaching out to their co-hosts and the panelists. All that information is in your moderator's corner. The best way to get to that in the moderator's corner is when you click on view bios. There's a link to your session and you click on that, and then it takes you to the page where the bios are, and you can get the email addresses for the presenters there. Once you've got everybody's email addresses, we really recommend setting up a practice Zoom meeting. You don't need to have a formal Zoom account. A free one is fine. You probably only need about 20-30 minutes, but it's a chance for you to connect with the panelists, make sure everybody knows how to do screen sharing, test their equipment, talk through any special things you want to do in your session. You want to collect their PowerPoint presentations. Again, these are backup. In case they have technical issues, you'll be able to share their screen. And again, make sure you download the newest version of Zoom before the conference starts.
In terms of the Zoom practice meeting, there were some questions about that. That you would just do on your own Zoom account. You can set up a free Zoom account, which will give you, I think, 40 minutes is a limit for free meetings. But it's just really a chance for you to test the equipment and run through the session. It really should not take more than 40 minutes. So yeah, we do not provide a link for you to practice. You'd need to create that yourself. Let's see, and as Natalie mentioned about the PowerPoint presentations, there's been a lot of discussion about those and moderators being concerned that they haven't received them. And so really don't worry about that. It really was just a way in the event that a presenter was having trouble sharing their screen, that the moderator might be able to do it for them. I think that that's not very likely to happen, particularly if you have a chance to play with Zoom a little bit. The screen sharing is very easy to do. So don't be concerned if they did not upload their PowerPoint presentations.
I'm seeing a lot of questions in the Q&A about time warnings for presenters. I know in live setting, you might hold up a cue card that says 5 minutes left, or you might have some sort of hand signal that you're going to do. It's a little bit harder in the virtual participation. There's a couple things you can do. You could come up with a hand signal that during the Zoom meeting, you say, hey, anytime I wave, it means you have 5 minutes left. That requires the presenter to be watching your video while they're presenting. So I think in the virtual setting, don't be afraid to interrupt the presenter and say, sorry, I just need to interrupt you for a second. You have 5 minutes left, or you've gone over time if you need to. Unfortunately, there aren't too many ways to kind of give a visual cue without the whole audience seeing it. You could use cue cards, but everybody who's watching would be able to see those cue cards. You could also get everybody's text and send them text messages if you think they'd be willing to kind of keep an eye on their phone during their presentation.
You can also privately chat with them in the chat box. You could send them a private message, but again, I don't know if they'll be focusing on that message while they're presenting. But I think that might also be a way to do it. I kind of prefer the verbal cue, you know, that I'm really sorry, we've come to the end time. Can you please wrap it up?
And just so I'm still seeing some confusion over mountain time, over time zones. This is so important. I really do want to make sure it's clear. Oops, sorry, I jumped ahead there. So when you're in the virtual meeting platform, you can look at it in My Time. That's up here at the top by changing down here. So My Time or Meeting Time, which is Mountain Time. When we scheduled everything, it's scheduled in Mountain Time. So the emails coming from the presenter, from presenters@apha.org, that's Donna, or if you're getting emails from APHA about events you should attend, we're always going to be referencing Mountain Time. But when you're viewing it here in the program, you can change it to My Time. So let me navigate to a session. I'm gonna have to make my screen a little smaller. Okay, so here we go. So again, this session is scheduled for 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time, because I'm in the meeting time or Mountain Time up here on my clock. Or if I click on My Time, it changes to 12:30 p.m. because I'm on the East Coast, and you see My Time up here. So if you're seeing Mountain Time, you can change it to My Time.
The other thing to keep in mind with the timing is if you decide to use the personal scheduler function, which actually we really recommend, it will keep your sessions in your local time. And you can download that to Outlook if you'd like, but just keep that in mind that whatever time you've selected is the time that your schedule will also download in.
Yep, so again, this is My Time. I'm viewing it and I can change it here to meeting time as well on this calendar. Oops, dang it. Okay, so what to do if a moderator doesn't show up? If you're on this call and you're the co-host of the session and your moderator doesn't show up, you're now by default the moderator. So hopefully you've been paying attention to this whole conversation. If a moderator doesn't show, we know you probably won't have the housekeeping slides, but just kick off the session and do your best to make sure the presenters are staying within their 15 minutes and help with the Q&A at the end. If on the flip side, if a co-host doesn't show, then the moderator does need to keep an eye on the Q&A for both general questions and to look at questions for the Q&A portion at the end. Feel free to enlist a panelist to help you at the beginning of that 20 minutes before the session starts. And if a panelist doesn't show, just go ahead and skip them. Again, that's why we want everyone to arrive 20 minutes early so you know who's there and who's not. So just skip a panelist if they don't show up. We highly recommend coming up with a couple of sample questions you might want to ask of the panelists in case the audience doesn't have any questions. And feel free to invite the panelists to kind of ask questions of one another. They're all on this one session because their research is similar. So it's a great way to start the conversation is for either you to ask some questions or have the panelists ask questions of one another. And if you or an attendee is experiencing technical difficulties, you can send a message directly to the Confex Tech. They'll be there 20 minutes early. They'll introduce themselves. They'll also introduce themselves to all the attendees via the chat feature in Zoom. You as a moderator are not responsible for answering technical questions. If someone has issues with Zoom, that's for the Confex Tech to help with. And I think that's everything. I don't know, Anna, if there's any Q&A we want to specifically go over, Donna.
Let's
Seeing
see.
a lot of the same questions. If the internet connection of the moderator fails, can the co-host take over? Yes. So the answer to that is yes.
And do co-hosts have access to the speaker's corner?
No, they do not. Only the moderator has access to the speaker's corner. Again, if there's no moderator, the co-host will just wing it at the session. Just get the session started. No need to worry about the housekeeping slides. Just connect with the presenters and just start the session on time.
And a question about, do presenters have to register to access the Zoom meetings? And yes, the answer to that is yes. Anybody who is registered for the meeting should be able to access those live Zoom links. If you're not registered, you will not even see the live Zoom link.
So a couple of things about information for presenters and moderators. We have a webpage on apha.org/annual meeting. There is a section called For Presenters. That's where you can find information for moderators, for presenters. It's where we are going to put this recording. It's where the recording is for the roundtable training that we did last week. We actually had a presenter training earlier today, which was recorded. So if you're looking for any information regarding being a presenter, a moderator, or a co-host, go to that For Presenter page and you can find all the information. And if you're looking for your speaker's corner, the best way to find that is to search your email for presenters@apha.org. That in every email we send to you, there'll be a link to your speaker's corner. So keep an eye out for that. If you're emailing us now asking for you to send it, we're not going to be able to remember to do it from this chat. So please look through your emails from presenters@apha.org.
Yeah, and I will be sending a reminder to all of the moderators because I know we're continuing to add new moderators who have never gotten any of the information. So be on the lookout for that by the end of this week.
There have also been a couple questions about, can we change the order of presentation from what's listed on the website?
If you're the session organizer or session moderator, I think the session organizer will usually contact me and ask me to change the order. But if you've had a conversation with your presenters and it's agreed that everybody would like to change the order, you will need to email me at Donna, DONNA.Wright, WRIGHT @apha.org.
Now, let me just say that Donna gets 180 emails a day.
At least.
So if you can avoid that, if you can live with the order that it's in, that might be the best solution. I think at this point, it may be difficult for us to make these changes individually.
Now, if you're looking for your housekeeping slides, those are in that moderator speaker corner that I just mentioned. So again, you want to look through your email from presenters@apha.org, navigate to your moderator speakers corner, and you can find that. I see somebody who's a little bit confused about their free limited Zoom for 40 minutes. We're only suggesting you use your Zoom for doing a training with the presenters ahead of time. When you join the session on the day of, you're using our Zoom, so you won't be kicked off after 40 minutes.
And we will be saving these questions and answers so that you can view them later.
Let's see, someone said, please repeat our options if there's a no-show by the presenter. If a presenter doesn't show up, just skip them and move on to the next person.
Question, is there a better success using Chrome as the platform versus Internet Explorer? The answer is yes. I find it very difficult to use Internet Explorer when trying to access the meeting platform, so I recommend Chrome or Firefox.
Mm-hmm. A little bit more about the Confex Tech. They will be available through the chat feature. So the best way to reach them is to send them a chat. They are not going to be there full time. They are actually managing a few sessions at once because we have so many sessions taking place, but they'll be jumping in and out and look. So if you send them a private message, they'll be able to see it faster. So that's the best way to reach them. And suggestion for audio, we recommend using your computer audio, not calling in, but if you do need to call in, when you join the Zoom on your computer, there's an option to join using your phone audio instead of your computer audio. We also really recommend that you use a hardwired internet connection if that's possible, and if it's not possible, to turn off Wi-Fi on other devices. So if you have your phone and an iPad and you have your TV that's a Wi-Fi device running in the background, turn them all off so that Wi-Fi is dedicated to the computer where you're doing your presentation.
A question on how can speakers share their slides with attendees? The presenter has the option of uploading a handout as a PDF. So they can certainly save the slides as a PDF and upload it in their speaker's corner. And a PDF of those slides will be visible on the presentation level in the meeting platform.
There was a question about whether co-hosts should also rename themselves.
Yes, we recommend that co-hosts, moderators, and presenters all rename themselves so that attendees know that you have a role in the session. And again, I know we're not getting through all the questions, but we're going to be downloading them and trying to answer them and post them on our website. There are lots of questions to go through here, so I don't know how quickly we'll get to them since we are a week out for the meeting. So I do recommend that all presenters check out our website, all moderators and co-hosts check out our website for the guidelines that we have. Really, everything I went through today is in those guidelines. I actually copied and pasted a lot of the information into my PowerPoint. So please check out those guidelines if you feel like you've missed some stuff today.
And those guidelines are on the presenter information page. So you just need to dig a little deeper, because I put that in the chat box earlier, and someone was looking specifically for roundtable instructions, or but they're all there. They're all on the presenter information page. You just need to dig down a little bit.
Yep, and again, for roundtable, I see someone has asked about that. The roundtable presentation that we held last Friday was recorded, and it's on the For Presenter page. So really, if you're looking for anything related to being a presenter, a moderator, a co-host, whether you're a poster, roundtable, oral, check out that For Presenter page.
Okay, I think we have reached the end of our time now. And so we will definitely make an attempt to answer as many of these questions as we can, and put them on our website along with the recording. But as we mentioned, that might take us a little bit of time to do. So I just wanted to say thank you all very much for what you're doing. You are so critical to the success of this meeting. Moderators really are making this virtual meeting possible. So I hope that what we've given you today has been helpful, and we will certainly try and answer all your questions. Donna, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate your time today, and we also appreciate you taking the time to help us make this a very successful meeting. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.